Hey gorgeous, welcome to my channel. My name is Roxana and I garden in Zone 5 in Central Indiana. And today I'm going to do a Q&A. I gathered some questions from Instagram and from my community page here on my YouTube channel. So hopefully if you have been wondering about some of these things, hopefully I can answer them today. Do you ever experience garden fatigue? How do you not get burned out on gardening? I love gardening. If you have been here for a while, you know that I grow vegetables, I grow cut flowers, I grow all of the things. I love backwoods, I love hedges, I love wild cottage looks, I look formal, and I am the only person in my garden. I am the one weeding, I am the one watering, fertilizing, I pretty much do everything. My husband does help me. I do volunteer my kids as well to help me with certain things, but I really enjoy doing this. Do I get burned out? Sometimes. If I am here every day, hours on end gardening, I will eventually burn out. But I don't really spend a lot of time outside in my garden. If I have the choice to be here every day on good weather days, great lighting, where I'm not just cooking under the sun, I will probably be here 3-4 hour tops. I love doing everything. Honestly, I love being out here. If somebody could just pay me to garden, I think that would be the ideal job for me. And it's not always the same thing every day, all the time. The things that I am doing in May in my garden are completely different from the things that I am doing in August or September. So it always changes. Now, I do find that whenever I am on a busy season, since I'm a photographer, whenever I am just editing pictures, taking pictures, doing photo shoots, and I end up having some extra time in my day to do something, the last thing that I want to do is garden. You know, after shooting, after editing pictures, I just don't really enjoy being out here when I'm exhausted. But if it's a fresh new day, if I have the choice to be outside, then you bet I am going to be gardening. And that's probably the key. I am not here all the time every single day, so it works really great for me. Do you know the names of your hydrangeas, more specifically which ones are bred to have thick stems and not flap over? So yes, I do know the name of my hydrangeas. My hydrangea hedge is made of limelight hydrangeas. I also have some firelight hydrangeas that I planted a couple of years ago. Those are beautiful. They turn into this beautiful, gorgeous pink color after they're done blooming. Those are kind of newish for me. I also have quick fire hydrangeas. I have some of the little quick fires around my garden fountain. Those are lovely as well. They stay a little compact. And I also, right here next to me, I do have a beautiful, beautiful Annabelle hydrangea. That one is a little bit more picky. It requires a little bit more from me as far as maintenance, but I didn't get any of these hydrangeas because of their super strong stems. I got them because they're beautiful and I love their blooms. I love how they turn their colors. I know that some people do experience flappiness on their hydrangeas because they may be adding a little bit too much water. So if that's maybe your case, maybe you need to be tweaking a little bit the water that you're doing. But I also know that there are some companies that are breeding new hydrangeas to be with stronger stems. I am not familiar with the names of those, but I do know that Proven Winners has one or two. If you're watching this video and you have a type of hydrangea that it's bred for that and you love it, leave a comment here below for this person who's asking about this. How high are your lights from your seedling trays? So my lights are LED lights. They are not grow lights. And I have said this before, I don't have grow lights. They're not so for growing plants. While they are strong, they're not super strong. So I really want to be careful about telling you exactly how far those lights are from the seedlings that I grow, because if you have different kinds of lights, if you have stronger lights, if you keep them closer to your seedlings, they're just going to burn. So that said, the LED lights that I have when I grow all of my seedlings indoors, that are really, really close to my lights. They're about 2-3 inches from my lights, and I like to keep them that way because, well, like I said, well, my lights are not super strong. They definitely are strong where if I have them like really, really close, almost touching the leaves of my seedlings, that are going to burn. I have had that before where the lights were touching the seedlings or were really, really close, and some of the foliage on some of my plants starting to die because they were just burning. but I really keep them close. And if you have different types of lights that are not LED lights, try to keep them somewhat close. And if you notice your seedlings starting to get leggy, get them a little bit closer, because legginess in seedlings means that they are reaching for the light, that they need to have better light. Are you going to plant greens this year? Yes. I do have some greens. They are growing right now. I don't know that I have showed that in the video yet, but I will here in a couple of days. I don't have any on my raised beds, but I do have them in other containers where I am growing them, and I think you're gonna like them. When do you start germinating for spring? Are there any veggies you start from seed in the fall? So I don't really start anything in the fall. My zone here, zone 5, is really harsh as far as the winters go, for really leaving anything outside that will do well during the winter times. Well, other than tulips and garlic, I don't really start any seedlings indoors from seed during the fall. Now in the spring, it's just going to depend on what kind of seeds I am starting. I wouldn't start all of my flowers or all of my vegetables at the same time, because some of them are slower as far as growing indoors versus others. I do have a lot of videos of when I started things indoors from this year, and I believe from last year as well. So I am going to put a couple of links. Maybe I am going to add a couple of playlists for you guys to see. It just kind of depends what I am starting. What is your favorite thing to grow on the garden? So as far as vegetables go, even though they're a fruit, tomatoes. I love tomatoes. If it was just one vegetable that I could grow in my garden, it will definitely be tomatoes. I love the flavor. I love the shapes, the colors, the sizes. I just love everything about tomatoes. And I do use them for a lot of cooking, and that's why I plant a lot of them. I think this year I started about 41 plants, something like that. I can't honestly remember, but I just love tomatoes. Do you have any indoor plants? Yes. I am a better gardener outdoors than I am indoors. I might show you a video of how some of my houseplants are looking at this point, maybe for one of these videos that I'm making daily in October. It's really embarrassing because I look at them once in a while indoors and I know they need water, and then I just forget to add the water to them. So, what is your secret to growing larger nasturtiums? Do tell. Honestly, this year the nasturtiums are just showing off. I mean, I am looking at them right now. They're gorgeous. I feel like they did amazing during the summer. They really did amazing. And now that the weather is starting to get a little bit on the cooler side, not completely cool, but definitely the mornings are a little bit cooler, they're gorgeous. I was just looking at some of them in my containers and they're just thriving. They're just loving it. And it's tricky for me to say exactly what I did different, because I pretty much have been doing almost the same thing that I have done before in past years. The first couple of years I struggled a little bit, but it could have been that I was using different varieties. The varieties that I am growing this year are different from the ones that I have grown the past year. So I don't know if maybe the varieties that I use combined with the rich soil that I'm using for some of those planters where I have them, I don't know if that combination just make the plants just be gorgeous, because that's pretty much what I'm doing. I don't do anything different for my nasturtiums. If I did fertilize some of my annuals, I also gave them some fertilizer as well. I think that I fertilized them twice, but as far as doing anything special for them, the one thing that I do have to say that I noticed this year is that the plants that I started indoors, that they came out as transplants, as seedlings in the early spring, they did a lot better than the ones that I direct sow. So if you're struggling with direct sowing your nasturtium seeds, maybe next year start a couple of them indoors and see if those work out better for you. What gave you a hard time this year and what did great for you? Well, the nasturtiums did amazing, as I said. The tomatoes did great as well. The one thing that I struggled a little bit with was my cucumbers. And I think that it has to do with just the heat, right? Cucumbers love the heat, but once it gets really hot, then they struggle. I did try to do some succession planting with my cucumbers, because I just wanted to have cucumbers all the time, but I am struggling with just getting the timing right for planting more and more cucumbers. So if I had to choose something that I struggled with, was definitely cucumbers. Have you ever planted any cool hardy annuals in the fall for a jump start on spring blooms? No. Unfortunately, my winters are just a little too cold where I don't think that things will overwinter, especially annuals. I don't think that they overwinter well. But if you do live in a zone 5 where you get really hard winters and you do something like this as far as planting hardy annuals in the fall for a spring bloom, let me know because I'll be interested to know. How do you prepare your beds for the coming year? So as far as my raised beds go, I only clean everything that was there before. I don't leave anything sitting there. I keep the weeds under control and I cover them with mulch. That's really all I do in the fall. I don't really do much for my garden beds on the ground. I add a little bit of mulch if I find any, if I have the time to get some mulch for them. I do, however, have some roses that I just planted a couple of weeks ago in a raised bed or in the ground, and I think that I am going to get some mulch just so they have a little bit more protection, because I will really be really sad if those roses die over the winter, which I don't think they will, but I'm going to add a little bit of mulch. But as far as anything else, I really don't do anything special. Do you plant a cover crop? If yes, what are the benefits? I personally don't do any cover crops for my raised beds. I know that a lot of people do this. Honestly, the biggest reason why I don't do it is because of laziness. Not only whatever I choose, I have to, make sure that it gets in there. I have to seed it, keep it water. But also in the spring, I believe that I have to do some harvesting and I have to make sure to leave everything there, seeding, not to disturb the soil. For me, for the way that I garden, it's a little bit too much involved. Now, there are a lot of benefits. I am not saying that it's something that it doesn't matter to me. It will be something that I will do if I have the time and the energy, because it does improve the soil, it helps with the weeds, it adds nutrients depending on what you choose. It adds nutrients to the soil and it helps with diseases for the following year. That said, there are a lot of things that people use for cover crops. There are grasses, peas, oats, wheat, rye, buckwheat, I believe. And depending on where you live, they have mixes for your zone and also for the area where you're planting all of this. I am definitely not one to do it, so I will not be the best to give you advice on what to use. I'm going to move a little bit because it's getting really hot. Okay, that's much better. How do you just keep going? My first year growing veggies and it was challenging. Here is something that I have found out when it comes to growing vegetables. This was my 4th year growing vegetables, and I do have to say that every year it's a challenge. It may not be the same challenge as the years before, but there is always a challenge with something. Last year, my tomatoes were almost a complete fail because of the weather. I had nothing to do with that. It wasn't an error on my side, but the weather just did not help me with growing tomatoes. This year, I struggled with cucumbers. 2 years ago, I believe that my squash were completely inundated with some pests. Every year, growing vegetables, for me at least, I don't know about you, every year there is always a challenge with something in the garden. But I feel that that's really what makes us better gardeners. Next year, you may be able to, not do the same things that you did this year with whatever gave you a challenge or whatever you struggle with. Some of the things that I did different for my squash this year that helped me with not having all of those pests was I started growing them vertical instead of just letting them be all over the ground. So I wish that I could tell you that it will get better, but at least in my experience, you'll always have challenges. Sorry. Have you ever tried drying flowers with silica powder? It's funny that somebody asked this question because I was just talking to a friend about buying some silica sand to dry some flowers. I have never done it, but I do want to try it. I don't know how much I will do of it, but as I am looking at some of my gorgeous dahlias right now, I really want to try it. I don't know if I'm gonna make it happen this year because obviously I'm running out of time and my blooms are almost done. But I do have a question. If you are experienced drying your flowers with silica sand, let me know where you get them from, where you get the sand, because I think at least for the dahlias that I'm looking at, they're the huge dinner plate size dahlias, so I think I'm going to need a lot of it, and I I don't obviously know anything about doing those that way, but it will be something fun. How often you change out raised bed mix once you establish a new bed? So it's just going to depend how much of the soil I have to replace each year. To give you an idea, this is my 4th year, and this was the year where I purchased more of the mix that I use for my raised beds to really fill the rest of my raised beds. Year 1, obviously, I purchased fresh new soil. Year 2, I used tap them with a little bit of compost because they really didn't reduce that much. Year 3, I added more compost, but the soil level was getting lower and lower. And this year, year 4, I was going to be buying way too much compost. I just decided to get some more of the fresh mix. And by the way, the mix that I get is from Indiana Mulch. I believe here in central Indiana they have a couple of locations. No, they're not paying me to say this, but I know that you guys, some of you live close to where I live, and Indiana Mulch is where I go for buying my mix. They call it Mark's Mix for my raised beds, and it's a combination of black soil, compost, and some other goodness in there. And that's the same stuff that I use for these guys right here, and it's gorgeous. Is your yard deer proof? No, it is not, but also I don't get any deer, so I am lucky that way. Okay, this is the last question, and I almost didn't add it to it because I thought it was funny. It is funny to me, but I wonder if some people see this from the comments that other people leave me here and wonder the same thing, so I'm just going to add it. I hope this is not offensive, but what does mija mean? This makes me laugh because I feel like everybody should know this. Mija is a word that at least in Mexico people use a lot. I don't know if any other Spanish-speaking countries do. I highly doubt it, but I don't know. Mija is one word that it's a combination of mi hija, which literally translates to my daughter. Now, when you call somebody mija or mijo, it doesn't really translate to my son or my daughter. It just is a way for you to call somebody the way that you would use sweetheart, honey, or sweetie, darling, or I don't know what else. But you get the idea. Mija is just a word that we use a lot. It's really not offensive. If somebody calls me mija, I just feel like kind of, I don't know. I do call my sisters mijas, but I'm not calling them my daughters. It's just a way to say honey or sweetie. It could be confusing if you're just looking at the translation, but that's just what it is. So that's it for this video, you guys. If you don't know, this month, October 23, if you missed that video, October 23, I will be posting a video daily of what I'm doing in the gardening related and all that good stuff. So if you find this towards the end of October, go back and check all of the videos, leave me a comment, leave me a like, and I thank you for being here. Until the next time.